or something like that because the building has one temperature.
Yeah. All right, let's get this started. Hi, and welcome to the Utini Cast, the podcast that will never tell you the odds. This is episode 180, or 181, being recorded on Sunday, December 14th, 2014. I'm your host, Redna, and with us today are Oofalong and Keyboard Ninja, well known in the forums and Reddits and other locations for stat number generation. I guess I wanted to start by letting you guys tell us a little bit again. You have been on the show before, but how did you get into doing what you do for the community and the number crunching and everything else like that?
You want to go first, Oofalong?
Sure, thanks. So this is Oofalong. Really got involved just to try and understand how the game worked. This is my first MMO. I wanted to understand how to optimally play my character, how to be most efficient in what I did, and in order to do that, needed to kind of get into the theory crafting, understanding game mechanics, character mechanics, stats, and all. So started there, and then I felt that as I was learning all of this stuff, would be a great opportunity to try and help or allow others to learn this stuff as well, for those who were interested and maybe didn't have any experience. So that's where I was trying to make contributions and post to forums and different sites to try and just share information. Generally, I'm a big fan of information sharing and making it accessible to different groups of people.
Yeah, and for me, I got in a relatively similar way. I've mained a Shadow Tank since launch, and again, this is, just like with Oofalong, this is my first MMO, and for a while, in kind of the 1.2 and 1.3 days, Shadow Tanks were really kind of not really despised, but certainly dismissed by the community as like the light armor tanks that couldn't possibly match up to the Vanguards and the Guardians, and I wanted to really go in and show that, okay, the self-healing actually does match. And if the self-healing wasn't enough, I wanted to know it so, I could try to do something different. So, I started, in order to figure that out, of course, I had to build some models that hadn't been built before that incorporated self-healing into the tanking and things like that. Posted it on the forums when I was done and got a lot of feedback and results and refined things and, learned a lot about various ways of modeling stuff, and just over time that kind of kept going forward. And I've always been a lot more interested in modeling tank theory crafting than the other classes, just because the numbers tend to be a lot cleaner and a lot more concise. Just understanding how the game works ultimately, and how to predict performance in the game and outcomes in the game has been kind of the driving theme behind my theory crafting over the years.
Okay, excellent. And what about your in-game experience? What have you guys been able to do? I know you both have been playing for a very long time. How's it been throughout your gaming experience with SWTOR?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I started out. I play on the Ebonhawk server, and I started out really not planning on doing very much outside of the story content. I wanted to see the raids once just for the story, but that very quickly evaporated when I was exposed to actually larger scale multiplayer combat, and I really got hooked on that. And so, raided on a relatively casual level, organizing my own raid group for a while, and then started doing some more serious progression raiding. Did Nightmare EC at tier. That was a lot of fun. I still think Nightmare Kefis is one of the hardest fights that's ever been put into the game.
Another Kefis lover.
EC Kefis is so great. It's such an amazingly great fight as a tank. It's a lot less interesting as a DPS or a healer, but it's great as a tank. Then doing PvP on the side more or less seriously along the way. I did 8v8 ranked when it dropped, and then continued PvPing kind of in spurts over the years. I've been in a raiding guild, the same raiding guild, basically since 2.0, and we've been doing the nightmare modes and whatnot. Cleared all the content, all the pre 3.0 content before 3.0 dropped, which I was pretty happy about. But yeah, working on the hard modes now.
Yeah. Okay. So started playing at launch, and it took me a long time to get my first level 50. I think it took 4 or 5 months. I really played this game as a single player game, and ended up rolling a Marauder because I thought it would be most similar to the dual wielding rogue from the original Dragon Age or Dragon Age Origins, and just thought, oh, I like that class, I like that playstyle. I'll do the same here in this game. It wasn't really the same, and I didn't necessarily know that the two lightsaber class was going to be so popular, one of the most popular ones. So it took me a long time to get into doing any type of group content. I think I did my first Flashpoint like in June, so 6 months after the game came out. Shortly after that, I joined a guild and started doing some operations. We were doing story modes and struggling at times in Eternity Vault and Karaga's Palace. I really tried to, well, at that point I was getting more into theory crafting, wanted to improve my performance, figure out as a group what we were failing on, what we needed to do better, and focused, doing that. And I ended up having to jump guilds a couple times, ended up in a progression guild on Prophecy of the Five, Memories of Zender, or Mox. They created the first Mox parser, the parser that everyone was using for a while. And so that was a lot of fun. At that point, we did Nightmare EC at level then as well. And that really kind of springboarded me into the more progression-focused rating. While I have never considered myself the best of the best players, I think I'm good enough to clear the content in this game, and for the most part have. Unfortunately, did not get a chance to kill Nightmare Dread Council before 3.0. But I'm okay with that. And then really looking forward to the new raids coming out, and that's really what I focus most of my time on, or perhaps exclusively what I play now. I might do a PvP match once a week, but usually that's just because I'm bored and don't have anything else to do, or there's friends in game that want help with it. So really just doing a lot of raiding, and that's what I'll continue to focus on. Now I've branched out and have, a dozen or more level 55 or 60 classes or tunes, and we'll play on a variety of roles and different things. But I would still consider my Marauder Oofalong my main, just to show how much of a noob I am. When I created the character, it was Oofalong. My forum handle is Oofalong, and my legacy name was Oofalong. So I really went, big into that, I guess.
I'm actually jealous of people who have their forum name somehow connected to their character names. I mean, Keyboard Ninja is not even remotely related to anything that I have in game. So sometimes people are really, really surprised when I say, "Oh, yeah, okay, my name is Tam, but okay, I'm Keyboard Ninja on the forums." Wait, you're what? At least with you, it's somewhat intuitive.
Yeah, no.
Dude, one of my biggest complaints is that you can't change your forum name, because my forum name is like not connected to any of my character names or even Redna in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I gotta say, well, I'll interject here. You guys always, I think both of you primarily play Republic tunes, and I primarily play Imperial tunes. And so I'm always doing this like translation in my mind. Just like, wait, they said Shadow, so that's got to be the assassin tank here or whatever. I always just think that's funny. And generally in Utini cast, everyone seems to be focused on Republic. So I'll try and represent the Imperial players here.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's ironic because Utini cast is one of the few podcasts where we are definitely predominantly Republic, although ironically both Tio and Chill seem to be playing a lot on both sides at this stage now. The game's been out long enough, everybody's got their alts to be able to jump back and forth. And I have definitely got I've decided with 3.0 to go Commando, and I'm doing Commando Healer. And I do have a mirror with my Merc. It was the very last with that 12 times XP that I was able to hit at like 2 a.m. in the morning before server reset. But I've got it so that I can rock it. And not only are the names different on the abilities, but what really throws me off is that the pictures on the abilities are different. And it's like, oh no. And like different colors even. And yeah, as long as I have them on the same hotkeys, I just don't look at the abilities anymore.
Yeah, I struggled with that as well. I know Keyboard Ninja and I had an experience raiding where I was tanking, and it was the first time I tanked on the Vanguard, and I was just like, I had no idea what anything was. The buffs that would pop up and trying to do this, even though keybinds were all the same, it really was quite confusing for me.
Yeah, and there's even just like tiny little differences in not just the animations, but also just the timing of things. Like it's a microscopic difference in the timing of things. I think one example that throws me off is gunslinger versus sniper. If you're in marksmanship slash sharpshooter spec, follow through and trick shot have very, very, very different timings. In fact, most of the gunslinger stuff is a little bit faster. So, like if you're used to playing a gunslinger and you like hit that aim shot button and then you mash the trick shot right after it, the trick shot is like clipping into the tail end of the aim shot. Like it's right there. It's very, very crisp. If you're playing, if you go from that to a sniper though, things feel really mushy and you feel like you're somehow messing up your APM because follow through actually takes a second to activate. And so you hit ambush and then you hit follow through and there's like this really awkward animation pause and you don't hear any sound or anything. Your character is just sort of standing there and then it happens. And so I know that's like I actually play a sniper primarily in terms of that mirror class, but when I go and I play a gunslinger, it's just like really, really, really weird.
Yeah, or even we've got Mighty Cube in the chat room is even mentioning that it confuses him that Bounty Hunter heat counts up while Trooper energy goes down.
Yeah. For a long time, because the bounty or the trooper's resource, I always thought was in single unit increments or something like that. And I was like, this is so imbalanced because the trooper, scales from 0 to 100, but the bounty hunter scales from 0 to 100, but the trooper is like 0 to 10. This just doesn't, or 12 or whatever. This doesn't make sense. But this was, I guess, a couple months into playing. So I've since figured out that they're really equivalent, but it is certainly odd.
Well, it wasn't equivalent back then.
Oh, really?
No. If you actually line up the ability costs, especially pre 2.0, because 2.0 was when they normalized the trooper scale to 100, and it still wasn't perfectly balanced, but it was close. But if you line things up pre 2.0, there were two problems. Number one, trooper abilities, like most of the heat costs, if you actually turn them into a 1 to 12 scale, you would have to round up very slightly in order to make it even. And so trooper abilities on average costed quite a bit more than the Merc ones. And you especially saw that with healing. To make matters worse, though, the tipping point at which the heat scale goes into mid regen versus high regen was at a lower heat cost by 3 heat than the relative point on the trooper scale. And so troopers not only had more expensive abilities, but they had a more punishing energy mechanic because they dipped into low regen much faster. So it was just mind-numbingly imbalanced. That kind of imbalance now would just cause riots in the streets.
What was the trooper? Because it used to be on a 12-point scale, right?
Yep, it was a 12-point scale.
Was it 5 or whatever was the?
No, I think. Oh man, what was the tipping point on the scale? It was 6 or 7. I think it was 7. Because the tipping point on the heat scale, I believe, is 40 heat.
It's 40, yeah, it's 40. So if 12 minus your 7 is, I think the same thing when I was saying 5. Yeah, and you're right, that is slightly off. Interesting.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite right. And so I remember I tried healing a little bit on a Merc because I'm Commando was my first healer, and it's still my favorite. And I had been healing on it. I was healing stuff in 1.2 and in 1.3, and I was sort of struggling through it, and making it work. And then I healed on a friend's Merc once, and I was just like, holy cow, this is so easy. All of my energy is just very, very flowing and natural. It was so funny, the faction imbalance at that point.
You're furthering that rumor that BioWare loves the Empire and hates Republic players.
At the time, I can see where it came from.
Yeah. I don't know.
Lost my mute button. Yeah, actually, they confirmed recently in one of their things. I think it was when they had those guests join them in BioWare California Redwood Studios to pre-launch the Revan expansion. They said that they were giving everybody Republic tunes to play on the computers because they didn't want to seem biased, and they know that everybody plays Imp.
Yeah, but that's even more true than normal now. Like, you look at the progression guilds, right? I mean, I know it's a little bit more normalized in PvP, but you look at the progression guilds, and especially if you just confine your focus to just the East Coast of the United States, there's basically one pub side progression guild that's doing serious things, maybe 2 across all of the East Coast servers. There's like 2 or 3 on the West Coast, I think just on Harbinger.